Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. This one is a video request from AKKD. Shout out to you, thanks for the idea. It's a really good idea. I've literally had to think about it for a while now. He asked what I think of social norms, societal norms, social norms and culture, right? If they're oppressive, if they're really necessary, and like, in fact, the last sentence you said where you said culture is the enemy of autonomy. It is like that sentence is pretty much spot on to me because one the thing about social norms that it's so self-evident. Social norms are about conformity. Society itself is about conformity, right? And human human societies have developed with that idea in mind, right? It's the reason why the concept of a nation came up so early on, right? Even in the Bible, they talk about this nation, that nation, blah, blah, blah. Everyone had their own version of nation. And it's so weird to me how people project our modern day understanding of the world and of human societies and cultures onto like ancient peoples. Yeah, sure, we literally had the same problems, but at the same time, like especially when it comes to the concept of race, because race only really came around the last 800 years really. And before that, literally like there's no way you were gonna go to like the Romans and the Greeks and tell them, you guys are both white, like or the Romans would go to the Greeks and be like, hey, my white Aryan brothers. They'd literally just slaughter each other on sight. It was like for everyone who was not in your tribe, it was on sight. That was the rule back then, right? So, even when you look back at history and you're like, oh, this is black history or Asian history or white history or whatever, like we can say that now because that's our understanding now. But back then, like, you think you are gonna group in the Romans with Germans or Celts? Are you fucking kidding me? You know? And we suffer from the fallacy of presentism. Like everything we interpret from the past or from the future is I mean, I think every generation does, but ours more so because we I don't know if we're really in the age of like a renaissance, or it's a new age altogether really. But if you look at even the age of the renaissance, they were looking back at the ancient Greek. They were they reclaimed the knowledge of the ancient Greeks, which were preserved by the Arab Muslims. Some crazy fucking irony there, right? And this is the crazy thing. Like to me, the Abrahamic religions are so shit. If it was like Norse paganism or like the Greek pantheon that took over, I think they'd have been a lot more bearable, to be honest. Like there's still religion, they still have their issues, yes, but Christianity itself, Judaism and Christianity were both incredibly influenced by Greek culture, incredibly so, right? And fuck, even the idea of hell itself, like the modern conception we have of hell itself, it comes from Dante's Inferno, and Dante himself was directly inspired by the ancient Greeks, right? He was well known for being inspired by the ancient Greek understanding of the underworld. So why wouldn't we have just cut out the middleman and just like, if you're gonna impose fucking what was it called, Hellenism? Yeah, if you're gonna impose Hellenism on me, I'll be like, okay, why the fuck not? You got a god of fucking wine, you got another one that just fucks everything inside. Then you got like it was lit. It was lit. It wasn't just some like nebulous fucking contradictory ass supreme being in the sky. And I really think the the idea of conformity is centralization. That's what it is. Because the empires early on were not centralized necessarily, right? they would have their capital city, but like usually it would be they would take over us, like let's say they take over an empire and they make their capital city, uh like they make the old empire's capital city their new capital city, right? Or like they use their old one or something like that. There was always different spheres of power even within like old empires. But once centralization, and I think Rome was very uh Rome was very pivotal in the idea of centralization, because people would actually want the Romans, like certain people, right? Celts, of course not. Germans, I'm pretty sure not really. Germanic people, not really. But like the Roman citizenship was literally so it was envied, right? It was so envied, and if you became a Roman citizen, you literally had like all the world's opportunities at your door. So they learned how to centralize power. They learned how to centralize power so much that once their empire dissolved, which people still argue about whether their empire is dissolved right now, they still don't know. They still really can't be sure, right? Subsequent kings of like different places, from France to Germany to fucking Greece, like everybody was trying to say that they were descendant from the Romans. They were the king of Rome, or they were the emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, or stuff like that. Like it lingered on because Rome became that center of power. They became the definition of, heck, they literally gave Europe their entire writing system, which they bought, which they modified from the Greek alphabet, and they modified it from the Phoenician alphabet. Or was it Sumerian? One of the two. One of the two, yeah. It must have been Phoenician. It was Phoenician, yeah. The Greeks got their alphabet from the Phoenicians, then the Romans got theirs from the Greeks, and then the English literally got theirs from the Romans, and everybody else got it from the Romans, pretty much, right? So having that power of that like lasting legacy of an empire stretching that far, I think it created this deep desire to have everybody conform. Everybody fucking had to, like, you had to assimilate. You had to be uh you basically had to be worthy to live on the land that you were living on, right? According to the people who were in control of it. And it's so weird how that like now shaped how we live. Because in conformity, you cement your cultural power, and then you also cement your your control of the economy, your economic power, right? Because if everybody, let's say, speaks the same language or practices the same religion, uh, it's much easier for you to trade with them, right? It's much easier for you as like a ruler to give your decree or whatever speech or whatever, because everybody understands it, because you made sure that they all conform and they all understand it, right? But how does that then like dissolve in that? How does that then uh shrink back like to our level, right? Like the fucking peasant level. I think people have uh they've really they've been convinced that they can get into the ruling class. They if they just do what the rich do, if they just do what the ruling class does, if they just speak like them and act like them and signal like them, they'll get there. I think that's what conformity ultimately does. I think that's why it's there. And and culture itself, it's so I might even make another video, because it's a very broad ass topic. Culture itself is it's so weird for people to even say that the concept of a homogenous culture. You know they're full of shit when they say that, right? Because even you literally look at any European country, right? Let's say even before the 1900s, any European country was made up of multiple ethnicities. If it was Britain, you had, and fucking hell, like, the UK itself was like colonized for like ever before they became the fucking big colonialists. They were literally like, English is like 70%, the vocabulary in English is 70% non-English, non-Germanic, right? Most of it is French from when the Normans ruled for 300 years, or Greek for some reason, and then Latin, right? That's where most of their vocabulary comes from. I'm pretty sure it's 70%. Like, there's not much English vocabulary that's actually Germanic. Oh, uh, and then, well, I guess the Norse, like the old Norse language was Germanic, I'm pretty sure. Because there was a point where the Danish also ruled England. There was, yeah, like, it's so crazy to me how they were able to get away with, like, saying that they're like this monolith of culture itself. Like, that's just England itself. That's not even including Scots, Welsh, other Celtic peoples, Irish, right? But what made them conform, if not that that I guess the power, the projection of power that, like, the ruling army had, the ruling emperor had, or the king. People conformed through violence first. That's how it is, right? Even when the Christian empire, like when the Christians were building their empire, when the Muslims were building their empire, right? Sometimes, depending on which religion it was, they would tolerate it, but you still had to pay a tax. At least for in Islam. Like, if you were practicing like Judaism or Christianity, they would tolerate it, but you still had to pay them the tax. Christianity, I think only if you were like Jewish, you were allowed to practice. If you were not Jewish, or like if you were like a pagan religion, you literally just had to convert, or just convert, leave, or die. Those were the three options, right? Those are the fucking three options. Anytime a religious, like an army strictly that also had a religion came through, it was convert, leave, or die, right? Sometimes it was just convert or die. Like, they're not even going to let you leave. So conformity was forced through violence, and then it diluted itself into social norms. Social norms became this subtle violence, right? Passive aggressiveness. Because when you don't dress an appropriate way, in an appropriate place, people are gonna look at you like, "Yo, why aren't you doing what the hell?" We all agreed to do this thing. Well, not even agreed, but like, this is how it is here. Why aren't you like this? It couldn't even be that. You could just be like, walking out of your house on a normal day, and people are like, "Oh, why are you wearing that?" Or, "Oh, that looks so cheap." The things like that. And it's like, what the fuck is it to you? I'm dressed, aren't I? Right? In some ways, there's the golden rule idea, which is across every fucking culture, every single one. Do not kill, do not steal. I'm pretty sure do not rape. I think. I hope, right? I hope so. At least do not kill, do not steal. All the morals that Christianity lays claim to were already present in like pretty much every other culture, like for a long time, right? Those kinds of golden rule things, don't assault another person, type of thing. Don't lie on somebody. Don't lie about somebody. So how did these things, like, in doing that, people were given like a false target, right? Like a dangling, like they were given bait. Like, they were just dangled in front of everyone's face and being like, if you get this bait, you'll be just like us. You just have to think like us, drink, eat, dress, speak, worship how we worship, all that kind of stuff. And that's the contradictory ass thing, because social norms don't apply to the ruling class. Go as far back as you want. And the clergy, I love how the clergy has recorded all its history for us so we can see just how fucking decrepit they are. The clergy would be fucking puritanical as fuck, right? They'd be telling people you're gonna go to hell if you do this or that. You have to pay this, you have to do that. Like, they wouldn't even let people read the fucking Bible for themselves until like the 1400s, 1500s, right? Pretty sure people were able to do it one or another, but like if they were caught, it was like a death sentence. And yet, once it happened, they had to adapt, right? Right now, there's not really many churches that can come to you and say, you should not own your own Bible. You should come and listen to the pastor because, like, yo, the fucking Protestant Reformation happened. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? And that's the thing. Social norms only exist if people believe enough in them to enforce them without violence. Because if an army comes through and tells you do this and this and this, you'll be like, oh, we're being held at gunpoint. We have to do this. But once you've become assimilated, once you have children and they have children, and that empire has always been there, the children will be like, oh, this is what we saw our parents doing, and even their parents did it. They won't know that was forced on them through violence, but to them it'll seem normal, and for them to enforce it towards other people will seem very normal. And the failure for people to ask how we got there in the fucking first place is the reason why people are just chasing nothing now. They're literally just chasing, like, this modern understanding of social conformity is sickening. It is sickening, man. It is so, like, what the fuck makes us so advanced now? Even in times of, like, brutal ass slavery and fucking conquest, people living in these societies, even if they were feuding with one another, they'd still have some like a thin layer of decorum. Now, it's like a blood sport. How much can I fuck this person over? How much can I get out of this fucking person, extract them, before I can discard them? Or just how fast can you use somebody and for how much, right? So you can brag about it. That is what this culture has become, and it's all over the world. By the way, don't get it twisted, right? This globalization idea that has happened. We're globalized now, But who globalized us, and for what? Right? Yeah, sure. It's easier to It's literally so easy to communicate with people across the world. I'm doing it right now, But at the same time, most people are fucking miserable, right? I could literally get on a plane and get to like fucking like China or like London or fucking, I don't know, even somewhere in West Africa in like less than a day, right? Even, let's say, even a direct flight, right? Even if it was 2 stops, like less than a day or even a day and a half, like within 2 days, I'm in an entirely different part of the world. Emperors and fucking conquerors would have dreamed to have such things at their hands. So why aren't we happy now? Right? The things the average person has access to would have baffled even emperors and kings of like 100 years ago or 150 years ago. And the things we engage in now, this understanding, the way people partake in like drugs and sex and alcohol, like, all this it's decadence, right? It's decadence. That's what they called it. This was stuff only reserved for the ruling class. And it was one reason why, even if you had like, let's say, like leftists, let's call them leftists, right? They would point out like, look at these fuckers. They just sit on their ass, and people literally slave for them to sit on their ass, grow fucking obese, get high off fucking, I don't know, opium and fucking cough syrup, like 18th century cough syrup. Like it was fucking fucked up, and just have orgies, literally have orgies, right? Fuck, even clergy would engage in such things, and it was like an open secret. But once it became societal norms, now they're a scourge on humanity itself. right? Because decadence is only reserved for the rich. You can't be a fucking fat slob and not be in the ruling class, right? It's a bad look. It's a bad look. You can't engage in orgies and not even be middle class, or just be middle class, in fact, right? I don't see how even men have convinced themselves that, yeah, it's just natural for guys to fuck and have fuck as many women as they put. It's normal for guys who are sociopaths, yes. It's normal for guys who have that never-ending hunger for it, yes, right? And it doesn't just stop at sex, right? It's money, power. It's just stimulation, right? That's not a normal thing for every fucking human being. It was reserved for the rich and powerful. That's why the rich and powerful had like a fucking 150 concubines, maybe 300, whatever, right? They could have a different girl every day for the whole year. And it was nothing to them because they were in charge, right? But we've been given this big fish in a little pond syndrome to chase after. That's why I lament how so many guys are just chasing uh this idea of like just grind and you make it to the top and all this kind of stuff. You won't. You know, if you're teaching guys to like build themselves up, if you're teaching people to build themselves, improve themselves, not lying to themselves, importantly, I think that's really good. But that's not what's happening, right? People are being sold motivation fucking porn to be like, yeah, you'll get whatever it is you're looking for, blah, blah, blah. Like, the thing about this society, it moves the goalposts. It fucking moves the goalposts. Say if everyone took that advice and everyone was able to to um to achieve that goal of, like, let's say, owning all their houses or whatever, right? Escaping the rat race. They'd just move the goalposts again and be like, this thing is worthless now. This is the new thing that's worth it. That's like worthwhile. Simple. Simple, right? It's the same way currencies were taken off of the gold standard and just left to float, just to float in the fucking in the imaginations of the people, right? People are they society is society Societal norms enable people to continue to be destructive. That's what I've really noticed. It enables people to be so destructive so quickly and so flawlessly, they don't even realize what the fuck they're doing. And that's one reason I fucking hate people. I hate hanging around people who can't introspect, right? Who can't introspect and they actually act on it to improve themselves, right? I'm not fucking going to hang out. I'm not going to be like, hey, somebody has to be a fucking 100% perfect 10 or like, I don't believe in that. But if you're actually putting in the time and the effort to improve yourself, we can have disagreements all the time. I enjoy it. I enjoy disagreeing with my friends, right? But if we understand what this reality is and what it does to us, and we don't let it sink us further in than however deep we are, and often I'll find those are guys who do not apply. They really do not ascribe to societal norms very much, or um they've superseded them in a way, right? They've superseded them. That's the problem when you actually sit down and deconstruct the world around you. You'll find there's not very many people you can actually sit down and talk to. You will find, trust me, you will find them. I'm introverted as fuck, but I have literally found, like, it doesn't even have to be many people, but just enough people, and we can just have like meet up like the first few times, and you can have like a 2-hour conversation, and you're just on the same wavelength, right? So I ultimately think they're a huge crush, a huge crush on the human psyche, right? I'm definitely gonna do another video on it because like this one is it's really expansive. It's really expansive.